Dear students, welcome to the e-learning session. This initiative is taken by Cambridge International School, Tasur. Hi, I am Navdeep, working as PGT Informatics Practices here. So students, today we will start a fresh topic. So till date we have covered the list, introduction to list and applied a few operations on list. And today we will apply a few more operations on the list. So before venturing into the topic of list, we'll just revise what we have covered till date. So students, we have gone through the data types. Clear? What are operators, expressions, precedence of operators means how the operators will be evaluated, debugging, very important component, that is removing errors. Then we covered functions and control statements. In function we discussed built-in functions like input function and print function. Then in control statements we covered if statements, simple if else and if else ladder. Then for looping we covered the for loop, and then in the last lecture we have started with the list. So students, before moving into the details of list, just revise the main points for Python. Python is a open source high level languages. Clear? So this is interpreter based, it is not compiler based. Comments, very important part, it is used for documentation. Identifiers are the basic building blocks in a programming language. Then what are the rules for naming the variables? Then process of identifying and removing errors is debugging. Then trying to use the variable that has not been assigned a value will fall under the category of a error. So then few more points. There are several data types, so like integer, boolean, complex, string, list and so on. Operators we have covered. Clear? We have basically a unary operator and binary operator. Unary operator works on a single operand, binary operator works on the two operands. Then is expression. Then we have covered the input and the output functions. And finally the if statement is basically it is used for decision making. Then the looping, where we need to repeat the fixed number of steps again and again. For this we have used the for statement. So these are the main points that I just want to highlight. Moving next. So students, we have in last lecture we have started the list. What is a list? The data type list is an ordered sequence. Ordered means that it follows a particular sequence one after another, which is mutable, means its values can be changed, and made up of one or more elements. So it can have any number of elements. Unlike a string which consists of only characters, a list can have elements of different data types. So that's why we say that in list we can store mixed type values like putting integer, float, string values in a single list. A list is very useful to group elements of mixed data types. So elements of a list are enclosed within a square brackets and the elements are separated by comma. Then students, what are the points that we covered in the last list lecture? That is how to access the element in a list using the index value of the list. Then lists are mutable, means its value can be changed, altered. We have done this with the help of example also. List operations. So what are the operations that we are going to apply on the list? First was concatenation, that is just to combine two lists. Repetition means that a particular list can be repeated any number of times. Membership is a function. Clear that where we have to check basically whether the value is a member of the list or not. So this gives the answer in the form of true and false. And last is slicing. Slicing very important because slicing is not used in list but in other data structures also. So slicing means that we can slice a bigger list to a smaller part. Clear? So that is also called a subset of a list. So students, our today's topic is I'll start with the traversing a list. What is the meaning of traversing is that is accessing each elements of the list. So we can access each element of the list or traverse a list using the for loop or a while loop. So we have already gone through the while loop. So we'll try to evaluate how we can traverse a list. Clear? So how we can do this? We're moving to the applied part. So now we will move to the Jupyter notebook for the practical purpose. So I just start with the command. I will now traverse a list using for loop. So first we will create a list, students. So let's say list name is list 1 with, let's say, name of the colors. Start with green. Let's say the second color name is yellow. Then the third color we can take any blue, let's say. Then let's say next is white, and finally we have another color name orange. So we have taken these 5 colors. So this is what the list contains now. Now to apply the for loop over this. So for item in list 1 colon, then start with the indentation, print the item. Clear? So item is acting as a control variable, and this is acting as a sequence or a list we can have or range here. So run this one. So students, you are able to see that these are the colors which are shown here one by one. So prints a name from the list, and then just go to the next line and see. This is how the values are displayed using a for loop. So this is how we can traverse a list using a for loop. Now the same operation we can perform with the help of range function also. See how this is done. I've taken a control variable as I. Now I will use a range function and then length to find the length of the list 1. So how to access the list elements? So let's say list item. Now I will use here list only, list 1, and then the subscript or index value. So students, this is another method of accessing the same list or traversing the same list, but using now a different method. Here we have used the range function, and length is there to find out the length of the list. So see how this we can run this one. Clear? So the program is giving the same source of output now, so that you can see clearly, and the same way the color names are shown here. So we are having now first is the color name green, yellow, blue, but now using the range function. So now we will continue and we will apply built-in functions for list manipulation. How we can manipulate a list using the built-in function. So students, let's say we create another list 1 with the elements just 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. Okay, so let's say the length function, how it works. So length of, let's say, list 1. So you run this one. So you see the length of the list 1 is 6 because it is having 6 members here. Next is to create a empty list. So how this is done? So let's say the name of the list is again list 1. So just use the list method, clear, and just I want to see my list. So when you run this one, so you will see the this is a list. Basically list 1 is now the list has been created, but it doesn't contain any member. So this sort of a list is called a empty list. Next is to append a value in the list. So let's say I take the earlier list, just to save time a bit, and just I want to add a value at the end. So I will use append method, and let's say 70. So you run this one, so the value is added here. So you can see here list 1. So you just run this and you see the 70 has been appended at the last. Clear? So this is how we can add an element at the end of the list. So now next is how to insert a element in the list at a particular location. So see how students, I just pick up this list 1 again. This is here. Now see, let's say after in between 20 and 30 I want to insert a element. So what I will do, list 1 dot insert. First I will mention the index value. So its index value is 0, its index value is 1. So in between if I want to place, its index value will be 2, and let's say the element I want to insert is 25. Clear? And just to have the list displayed here, so just go to the run button, run this one, and you see now the 25 is now inserted in between 20 and 30. So you can insert at any location. Let's say you want to insert it, let's say at a different location, let's say between 30 and 40. So you just give the third location 3, just run this one. So now the element is between now 30 and 40, 25. So this is all up to us how we can where we want to insert the element and how we can where we want to insert it. Okay, moving next. So if we want to count the number of elements in a list, just use the count method, list 1 dot count. Very simple this is. Yeah, just go to the run, but before that have the list get printed here, list 1, then go to the run option. So there is now some error is here. Count method gives the frequency of a number. So let's say I want to find the frequency of, let's say 10. So 10 is, so yeah, so if you run this one, so it tells that the number 10 is occurring how many times? Once only. So if I put it once more in the list, so when you run this one, so you see the count is now 2, because it checks that this particular element 10 is occurring how many times? 2 times in the list. We can also find the index of a number. How to find the index of a number? Let's say my number is now, let's say 30. So I want to find its index value. So I type here just index, or let's say I'll take it as now 30, 50. Clear? So I run this one. So what is the index value of 50 is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So you get 4 as a return here. So here we can find the element based on the we just enter the index its value and we get its index value. Next we can also remove a element from the list. So let's say we want to remove 50 from the list. So remove is the function. So you just run this one, and then you print this list 1, and you see that the list is now not containing element 50. So this is how you can remove a element from the list. We have one more function like this, like pop, but it removes the value based on the its uh, its index. So let's say its index, I want to remove this one. So when I run this, so you get now this 10 is now replaced from this list. Clear? Because its index value is 0. So pop basically removes the element based on the index value, as well as the earlier remove, it was removing the element based on its value. So next we can reverse a list also. So let's say I want to reverse this one. Clear? So you see how this works. Just go to the run option. So now all the elements are now in the reverse order. Whatever the elements are there in the list, in this list, they are reversed. So this is the applicability of reverse function. Next, if I want to sort the elements, so let's say we have few unsorted value. Let's say here I insert here 5 in the list, or let's say next is having here I place 100. So see how this sort function works. So you see, just go to this run option. So now you see all these list elements, these elements have been sorted in the ascending order. So by default its order is ascending. If we want in the descending order, so we say reverse equal to true. We pass this parameter and just run this one. So you know the whole of the list is now in the descending order. So this is how to convert a list into a range into a descending order. Next we can find the minimum element from the list using the min function. So I remove this one and I place here the minimum function min. So just run this one. So there is some error is here. The error is here that we have used this function a bit differently. We have to just pass the list as a parameter. So I will pass here a list 1, clear, and move this one. So then you will get the minimum in the list. So run this one. So you get the minimum value in the list is, see here 5 is the minimum value. Similarly we can find the maximum value. So you run this one, so you get the maximum value from the list. So students, here what we are doing here in minimum and maximum, we are passing list as a parameter to minimum and maximum functions. And we can also find the sum of all the elements of the list. Just in the sum function we have to pass the list as a parameter. So all these elements will be summed together using this sum function. You go to the run and you see the sum of the list elements is 325. So this is how you can apply the sum operation on the list also. So students, today we have applied a number of functions today on the list. So like how to insert a particular element, to append a element, to create a empty list, and then is to find the length of a list, traversing a list, clear. And at last also we have covered minimum maximum element of a list, to add all the elements. What is the difference between the pop and the remove function? Pop was removing the element based on their index value, remove was removing the element based on the value of the elements. So all these things you need to practice, because this will be very handy in the days to come. So my humble request to all of you is, you just practice all these things at home. So at the end of the session, I thank you all for attending the session. So thank you very much.